Hello. Hi, how's everyone? I'd like to welcome everyone to Environment Tasmania's Climate Change and Social Justice Forum. I'm much encouraged that people have made the effort to come along and engage with the crucial yet much neglected part of the climate change issue. Firstly, I'd like to recognise the traditional owners of this country, the Moohin and Near people. Environment Tasmania expresses solidarity with the Indigenous people of Tasmania and supports their ongoing struggle. I'd also like to thank Barry Dixon for hosting us at Sirens this afternoon, and also to Polly Buckhorn for being the instigator of this event. Much of the discussion regarding climate change in recent times has focused on economic adjustments and policy responses that aim to reduce emissions. What's often lost amid the rhetoric and the future planning are the human costs and the potential impacts on people. Less than an hour's drive from where we stand tonight in the Southern Midlands, 5-year drought is forcing farmers from their land. And apart from the odd newspaper article, how often do we spare a thought for those Tasmanians whose lives are being changed irrecoverably by this situation? To look slightly further afield, the Murray-Darling Basin has been damaged beyond repair by climate change already. Many Australians are aware of the rapidly unfolding disaster in our continent's food bowl, and also of the ecological catastrophe that's occurring in the lakes at the Murray's mouth. The ramifications for our communities as a result of these effects will be widespread. While Ross Garnaut and the Federal Treasury Department attempts to model the impacts of climate change and policy responses on the economy, I find myself wondering how we can measure or even try to predict the impacts on our communities. This afternoon's forum, while touching on the human impacts of climate change in an Australian context, is primarily concerned, however, with the global situation. Australia, as a nation which has benefited historically from the emission of large amounts of carbon dioxide, has a significant responsibility in ensuring that those people who are the victims of our profligate use of resources are assisted in whatever way possible. Australia has a particular responsibility to our neighbours in the Oceania region. Places like the Carteret Islands in Papua New Guinea and Tuvalu are already disappearing beneath the waves, with thousands of people already being evacuated. The Carterets are a small chain of islands situated adjacent to Bougainville. They have no roads and virtually no electricity, and these people bear no responsibility for the alteration of our planet's climate. However, they're bearing the brunt of the early impacts of the changes. These people are losing their entire nation because nations like Australia and individuals in those nations are not willing to alter their lifestyles. The responses of policymakers in Australia at this stage to situations such as these is a pretty sad indictment on the state of our nation, I think. Australia is still not accepting climate change refugees, though hopefully that will change soon. This week in New York, the Coalition of Small Island States, which was established in 1991, partially in response to concerns about climate change, tabling a resolution calling on the UN Security Council to address climate change as a pressing threat to international peace and security. This resolution is also being supported by Canada, which is the only developed large emitting nation that's supporting this resolution at this stage, and I'm attempting to find out whether Australia will be supporting this motion. And if anyone here is interested in engaging with this and would like a bit of homework, I'd suggest calling our federal MP for Denison, Duncan Kerr, in his capacity as Parliamentary Secretary for Pacific Island Affairs. Before we get started, the following elected representatives have expressed apologies for not attending: Duncan Kerr, David Bartlett, Michael Hodgman, Elise Kircher from Hobart City Council, and also Adriana Taylor from Glenorchy City Council, the Mayor. It's probably enough from me, but I'd like to introduce our presenters for tonight's event. We've got Cam Walker on the right from Friends of the Earth in Melbourne, Kristen Waugh, who's from UTAS, Ros Lewis from Oxfam Tasmania, and Polly Buckhorn from FO Tasmania. The structure of the event, each speaker has around 15 minutes to present. Generally, when Environment Tasmania does forums, we have a pretty rigid structure, but we're going to make it a little bit more flexible. Tonight, there'll be opportunity for a couple of questions after each speaker, and after the speakers have all presented, we'll be having around half an hour for open discussion and further questions. So maybe if people have a couple of questions after each speaker, if we could try and keep it brief, and then if people wanted to make more statements and so forth, we can do that afterwards. And after, we'll be showing us a documentary, The Carbon Connection. It's a new documentary that details the potential impacts of carbon trading on communities in Scotland and Brazil. It's quite topical. I built it as a Tasmanian premiere, but I've subsequently been told that I've been won up by the good people at the Socialist Alliance. So if anyone wants their gold coin back, then come and see me afterwards.